Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we're going to talk about getting into your flow zone. You know, that place when things just work and you're creative and you're intuitive and things just happening. We have a wonderful guest here today, Lynne Brodie. I met her on Facebook, and she is a strategic visionary, a business intuitive, and a professional alchemist. She helps you unlock your full brain access in as little as 60 minutes and without mind-altering substances or psychoactive drugs, which I really like because there's not that I like the drugs. I like the fact that she does it without that because, I know a lot more people are using substances to get into that state. And so I'm excited to hear how Lynne does that without that. She combines decades of ancient wisdom with proprietary energy techniques, spiritual awareness, neuroscience, quantum physics, and modern intellect. And again, like I said, she brings you into your flow state. So Lynne Brodie, welcome, Leaders of Transformation. We're excited that you're here today.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm happy to be here also and excited to be able to speak with you and share information with your listeners.
Yeah. Well, we talked about recently you were at the Conscious Capitalism event and that you were talking with some, people there, and they were so interested. And I think this is a really important topic right now. And so let's dive in with the flow zone. What is the flow zone, and what does it allow people to do once they're in the flow zone?
Okay. So what most people don't realize is that in your conscious processing, you have access to 120 bits of information. You use 60 to speak and 60 to listen. So you max out your bandwidth when you're in conversation like we are now. But in your subconscious, you have access to billions of bits of information. And it's where you multiply your intelligence, your creativity, innovation, invention lies. And excuse me, and I have a process that I call the flow zone that helps you tap into your subconscious and all of those bits of information. It's where all the information that you were born with live and reside. And so it's really what transformational leaders lead with, because when they're leading from within, it's that they're tapping into that flow state. It's when, people have seen fleeting moments of it really. And, whether they've done a presentation or a business meeting and they're like, oh man, I was just like everything converged, everything. I was just firing on all cylinders at once. That's your flow state. When you tap in and everything converges. So that you have the best outcome, and you're really stepping forward and you're working from, and I hate to use an overused term, but peak potential of everything that resides within you. But most people don't know how to get there. They don't know how to repeat it. They don't know how to do that. And yes, some people are using drugs, or called microdosing, to be able to invent products and services. But I work with entrepreneurs and corporations. I have 28 years in corporate America, working for Fortune 20 companies and Global 100. I'm an ICF credentialed coach. My intuitive abilities and the quantum physics, and merging it all together to help entrepreneurs and businesses who have plateaued invent new products and services that simultaneously serve their clients, support their employees, and solve world problems. Which is really huge in changing the business model today into conscious capitalism, and where everything resides, because conscious capitalism is the balanced approach between capitalism and socialism. It's businesses that are doing good and having social impact in what it is they're doing, and not just cutting a check for humanitarian purposes. So when you think of a company, because people are like, wow, can you give me an example of that? And so I usually give them the example. It's not my client, but I give them the example of Tom's shoes. So if you've ever heard of Tom's shoes, for every pair of shoes you buy from Tom's Shoes, they also donate a pair of shoes to the barefoot of the world. So they're solving a problem with their product, and their employees want to work for them because they're doing good, which is huge in the changing business model. So if you really want to get ahead of the curve in your business, that's the kind of business model you want to have, because 50% of the world's population is in millennials and Gen Z. And they don't just want to work for people that pay them the most. They want to work for people that are doing good and that they believe in and that they support. So companies really need to shift and move towards that. And individual entrepreneurs need to do that as well, for people wanting to look to do business with them in the future. I mean, think about it. Do you want to do business with someone that you like and that's really nice and is doing good? Or do you want, the alternative is, well, nobody else offers this service or this product, so I have to buy this from them. But as soon as someone else does, I'm dumping them. I'm leaving them. So you don't want to have that kind of business model. So I work with people on that, but in getting them into their flow state. And their flow state is a place that it takes Tibetan monks 30 years to study to get there. It's the deepest levels of meditation and connecting with who you are and where all of your answers are.
So how do you avoid having to do 30 years to get to that point so that you can be in that flow state? And I know for myself, in my experience being in flow state, it's funny. It's like things slow down and it's just effortless, and then you're just doing it, and it's like it's all happening. And I think people have experienced it. If you've played sports, sometimes you'll see people, they'll be in their, you hear that a lot, they're in their zone and they're just, everything's flowing. But how do you do that? How do you do that on demand, get people into that state?
I work through a quantum physics process where, and this is something that I was born with, as well as my intuitive abilities. I just happen to combine them together for helping businesses. And so, I actually pull the energy into me and flow it out to people. And I do this over the phone. I've done it with thousands of clients on 6 continents. And more conscious businesses, leaders, and corporations, you'd be surprised, are tapping into this and learning that it's really the way. It's the level beyond skills that you need to work on if you really want to catapult forward and you really want to be able to evolve both yourself and the world in what you offer. So people ask me, they're like, do you teach people how to do this? And I'm like, I don't, because I was born with it and I can't tell you how to do this. It's like a child prodigy pianist that sits down and just starts playing. They can't teach you how to do that. It's something that's innate within them that they know how to do.
Got it. So, what I love about this is that you are using your gift, even if you don't know how to teach it to others to duplicate it, but you are using your gifts. And there may be some people listening out there, our listeners, viewers, that have a natural gift and they're saying, I really don't know how I do it, but they can still use that gift.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to help other people, and maybe along the way they discover how they act and figure out the process to how to do it, or they meet somebody who knows how to extract that out. I know for myself, I used to, I figured out how to sell, but I didn't necessarily know how to teach it until I met a mentor who would teach sales. And then I would watch him and I was like, yeah, I do that. Yeah. That's how I do it. And then it was through him explaining how, and teaching it, that I figured out how I could teach my own process. So, but in the midst, in the meantime, you do use this gift and you go into teams. So let's give us an example. You go into companies that want to create new products and services that make a meaningful difference in the world. And so they bring you into their strategy sessions. Like, how do they even find out about you and say, oh yeah, we need you to come in to bring that energy and that whatever that juju that you've got. We wanted to bring you into this strategy session. How does that happen?
Mostly, word of mouth, or I've been getting a lot of media attention lately, people wanting me to be on their podcasts, and through events that I go to that are already aligned with mindfulness. Because I always say mindfulness is your most progressive technology. So the Conscious Capitalism event, there's a lot of corporations that go there, and people that were finding out about me there and learning. Also by me and sales process. I mean, in corporate America, I was in information technology sales and strategic alliances for all of those years. So I also reach out to people that some of the companies that I feel would be interested in my services. Entrepreneurs, word of mouth, because I can also use the process for entrepreneurs or speakers before they go on stage to get rid of stage fright, and they're balanced and can really read and tap into the energy of the room and where to flow and where to bring it in their presentations. With corporations, I also work with teams and interconnect the flow of teams to take the politics out so they can get to market faster. There's certain things that, of course, I talk about that I use it for, but it has limitless potential. I've used it with authors that have writer's block, and artists for any creative blocks. But mostly, there's a lot of people who are like, I know there's something more inside of me, in something else that I'm meant to do and bring forth, and I'm not quite sure what that is. And I help them connect to that in what's inside of them in all types of industries. So people hear about me in different ways, and by my clients telling them. Sometimes my clients don't want to tell them because I'm like their secret weapon in their back pocket. Because in corporations, I can also be their strategic advisor and consultant going to mergers and acquisition meetings because of my intuitive side in knowing where to go in meetings. Regional directors of sales and vice presidents have used me to help close their top 10 sales opportunities. If they're stuck. So like I said, I mean, it's somewhat limitless. I added to my list of things to do retreats also, and to start doing retreats. And also I have something called the Brain Trust Society. And it is about bringing together leaders and conscious C-suite to be able so that they can, it's like a brainstorming, like a think tank but I am somewhat like the wind beneath their wings when I am putting them into the flow, because I don't know the information that's inside of them. I mean, yes, my intuitive part does, but it's better when I help them bring it to the surface and invent it, and they're all talking amongst themselves and developing it out. I mean, different industries, while I've worked in cross industries and had clients in multiple industries, as well as worked with the federal government and international organizations, they they know their business best and their industry best.
Yeah. So what are some of the barriers? Let's look at the flip side. What are some of the barriers to being in flow? Like if I'm thinking about daily practices. So if they're not necessarily going to be able to do exactly what you do, but there are certain things that you do that help get you into that flow state, or others. And there are certain things that prevent that from happening. So let's talk about barriers, and then we can talk about maybe some ways to get into that. So some people that are listening are going, okay, well, I want to be in flow state. I'm not in flow state. I can hire you. And what can I do to even just get started? That way they can also make the most of the time with you.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like you can start them off on the beginning part, so they've at least gotten that groundwork set up so that you can get there that much faster.
So it's a lot in doing personal development work. I'll use myself as an example. I had to do a lot of personal development work on myself in order for my talents and abilities and gifts in having this be able to rise to the surface. Because because people will understand this part about their limiting beliefs or their fears or what I call core wounds from childhood that you have, and that hold you in a place of um, heaviness, and that heaviness holds down your ability to access the flow zone. So, uh, uh, you know, so people need to work on that. But in sessions with me, because I'm an ICF credentialed coach, I combine all of those things together. So I combine my my years of business and business acumen with being a ICF credentialed coach, the intuitive part, and the flow state energetic part all together in appointments with people, so that I'm helping them move beyond those places of what it is they need to release, both, well, more than both. I mean, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically. Because a lot of people have done work and personal development work, and they're like, okay, I've been in therapy and I've worked with a coach, but I'm still stuck on things. And I'm like, well, because you worked on, or, your nutrition, so the evolution that I like to say through the centuries is that people worked on their physical body. They learned that they needed to take care of their teeth. They needed to eat right, and nutrients and physical aspects of things and exercise. And then they started to work on their mental state, and therapy became bigger, more acceptable. And they started to work more on their emotional state and in moving and releasing limiting beliefs and working with coaches and all of the things that comes with working with a coach. But I'm like, but you didn't work on your energetic body, and that's where things are still stuck.
Mm.
It's kind of the last piece of where things are stuck inside of you before being able to really move forward and catapult forward at a huge level.
Got it. So this energetic field that we haven't worked on, maybe explain it a little bit, and how would we? I know energy healers, right? That will unblock energy and get it flowing and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You combine that with what you're doing. So, like, if you go into a session, let's maybe even just do like an example. You go into a session with a team. What do you do with them?
When I work with teams, I work with them as a team, and I work with each teammate individually.
Okay.
So everyone has individual sessions with me as well. But I work and look at the team dynamics of whose energy is stuck with each other because of their own personal issues, because of their own personal core wounds, because of their own limiting beliefs.
Mm.
And it's the dynamics between the core wounds and limiting beliefs of this person and this person. So it's a mixture of a lot of different things. And I actually had someone say to me that I was a constellation of all the right things intersecting because of the business, the coaching, the intuitive, the energetic parts. I was like, wow, that's really nice. Can I use that? I'm going to borrow that, and say that, because I'm like, I never really thought about it that way. But until I learned to intersect and connect all those things together, which is who I am, and find my voice to express it to the world and to bring it forward. The pieces were working, but they weren't working at the highest levels that they should be.
Got it.
And so I want to back up a little bit on the flow when you said about mentors earlier, because I had a mentor who taught me, because she always told me, she's like, wow, you have all this like energetic power. You're meant to really do this in the world. I'm like, really, me? And she taught me how to use it and tap into it, but I don't do it the way she taught me. All of a sudden, one day, I was like, oh, and I just knew. It just kind of all converged inside of me, and part of being in the flow, like when you said earlier, when you're in the flow, the timelessness. There's a timelessness. There's a sudden understanding that it also, your learning increases, by exponential amounts. Your confidence, your clarity, all of these things that just come about, that you just know what to do.
So your daily practices, what are some of the daily practices that you have that help you to be prepared to go into your sessions?
So my daily practices, I do the flow zone all myself, and pull it into myself. I do that before, while I'm working with clients also, because I'm more of just the portal, like the garden hose, I'm just pulling it in and flowing it out to people. But I also, and it's a nice perk because I get it at the same time, which was a surprise. I don't know why it was a surprise, but it was, when I first started doing it all the time for clients. And, but a daily practice, I do it on myself all the time. When there's something that I need to know and that I want to find out, I do it on myself. I close my eyes. I connect with the deepest parts of myself, and I say, show me. Because really what I'm doing is communing with the deepest subconscious parts of myself, my soul, what I was born with, and everything that's in there. So that's why when they say lead from within,
yes,
and leaders lead from within, that's the part that they're looking to connect with. This is more, this is deeper and just exponential in the levels of that. So I use what I give to others. For myself, it's not a case of the shoemaker's children go without shoes. I actually, in the beginning it was, and then I was like, well, wait a minute, because my mentor's like, why aren't you doing this for yourself? I'm like, oh yeah, there's that,
Yeah.
We all learn. We're all just still learning also,
Yeah. Well, I hear you said like getting connected, going deep within, you have access. And in the beginning, we talked about the fact that, you have consciously access to a certain amount of information that, processing and so forth, but then there's so much more that we have access to, billions of bits of information, like you said. And so I hear presence, getting present to that, going within, noticing the energy. I think we're all capable of doing this at some level or other. Some of us are just a little bit more present to it than others. I noticed for myself, there was a period, there was a season where I was not present to this ability that I had. But I had this intuition that certain things were going to go down a certain way, or I just had an intuition to do something a certain way. And to tap into that genius zone of what I was good at just naturally, because it was what was needed. I happened to be in an environment where it was required and it was needed. And so somehow I intuitively knew to do that at a very young age. And so, but then there are other times in my life where I wasn't present to it because I was so clouded with all of the drama and stuff that was going on. And you talk about dynamics between people.
Right.
That all of this, we are who we hang around with. If you want a cold, hang around with people who have a cold. If you want to be confused, hang around people that are confused. It's an energy. And,
right.
And so I, when I was around that, and it was just like, I can't think straight. Like I'm just having this trouble to even get away and get that quiet and get that clarity. I'd have to have extended periods of time away from certain people so that I could do that. But then when that relationship, and those relationships ended and I was by myself, I had that time to be by myself. All of a sudden it was like the air became clear. The energy started to flow. And so I'm hearing presence, I'm hearing clearing, being clear. I know nature is really powerful to be able to get into nature and, and for even just clearing away negative energy and so forth. But you talk about this going inwards and checking in, even just knowing that you're able to do that and just thinking, wow, I can do that. Yeah, you can, is what I hear and what you're saying. So there is a process. There are things that you do that are so automatic to you, that somebody else looks at it and says, oh, that's what I see what you're doing now. I see kind of elements to it. And I'm sure there's so much more to it.
When you said when you were around certain people and you were like the heaviness, that's what I talked about before, of the layering on top of that. You can't get to and access that part within you. But also, yes, we're all born with this because it is, it's based in science. Of course, there's a spiritual side to it, but it's where science and spirituality meet. The science part is Einstein's EMC squared. All things are matter and all matter is energy. We're all made up of energy particles. If you remember in school, you have your proton, your neutron, and your electron. The electron is your electrical energetic part of you within that, and we're all exchanging that energy with each other all day long, which is why when you're around certain people, it depends whose energy is stronger. And if you're going to be collecting more of theirs or they're going to be collecting more of yours, like who is going to have the shift? Which is why there's the saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. And you want to spend time with people who are further down the continuum and growth than you are. So their energetic abilities, and it's all going on subconsciously, that they can help pull you forward in that, as opposed to if you're the person that's most advanced in the group, you're pulling other people forward, but their collective is trying to pull you backwards.
Yeah.
And which is why you feel then the heaviness and slipping kind of thing. But
so how do you deal with somebody, let's say, for example, you're hired to work with a team and you've got all these leaders and you've got 50% or 70% or 30% that are bought in. They're like, yeah, we're excited that Lynne's coming today. And then you've got those few people that are like, what is this hooey, right? What are we doing? They're there because they were told to be there. They're part of the team. How do you deal with them? Because they can block the energy for everybody else.
Well, because I own my own business, I can choose the clients I work with.
That's true.
So part of working with, well, here's the thing. Everybody's ready at a different level. Everybody has to be bought in. Right. And I'm not saying they have to be 100%, but when I'm working with corporations and I'm talking to them, I'm like, okay, we can do a pilot program for 60 days. I want to meet with the teams and the people that you want me to work with, because I want to see if they're actually ready for this level of work to be done, because neither side wants to be unsuccessful. I don't want them to feel like, oh, this doesn't work, or like 2 people on the team, like, this is amazing, but now I figured I was working with people that weren't so advanced and now I really know, so I'm not looking to create issues with their teams and with their groups. But so there needs, people, just like anything else, just like any other program, you're not going to take a program that someone like, Oprah Winfrey is ready for because of all the spiritual advisors she's interviewed and worked with and all the knowledge that she has and the things that she's done, and provide it to someone who is new into just looking into it. It's the difference of, are you in 6th grade in your learning? Are you in 10th grade? Are you on your PhD? I mean, you're not going to take a child in 4th grade and try to give them PhD information to learn. You're setting them up for failure,
Right.
really.
So you calibrate the team and make sure that everybody's on the same, somewhat on the same page, in the same grade, if you will,
Hmm.
as it relates to this, and then you can start to work with them. So,
Yes.
got it. This has
Yes.
been very interesting. So, what's your goal? What's your mission? What's your big vision as you look forward and you do this flow zone for you, and you look ahead and you say, "This is where I want to take this."
Aha. I would like to work with the United Nations um, in looking at offering to world leaders
Okay.
to also, in that level, solve world problems
Hmm. Got it.
because they have their core wounds too.
Yes.
And like you think of the G20 and the G8 and um, to work with people at a very high level that are affecting the masses.
Got it.
Mhm.
So if our listeners out there have any connections, feel free to pass them on to Lynne. Lynne would love to talk to somebody at the UN. So lynnebrodie.com. We'll make sure that your website is in the show notes, but that's LYNNEBRODIE for those of you that are listening or watching. And you can find out more about what Lynne's doing, connect with her. She's a fascinating woman, and she's got this tremendous gift. And I would also encourage you, as leaders of transformation, take action. So take action on something that you heard today. Maybe it's even just recognizing that you have a flow zone. That's the first thing, right? Is to recognize that it's even possible. How can you create something you don't even know is possible? And so recognizing that, and then looking within and saying, okay, so if it's there and I have this flow zone and I have access to all this information, how do I call it in? How do I connect to it? What is standing in the way? And a lot of those answers may just, you'll get the insights yourself, or you can start this process. And of course, Lynne is going to take you to a whole other level if you work with her, and then you can reach out to her and ask her questions. But I encourage you, take action on something that you learned today, because that's where transformation happens. We look forward to hearing your stories. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com. Let us know your comments, your questions. We'd love to hear from you. Also, the other part of this is, just like Lynne, you have a gift. You have a genius zone. And so what is your genius zone? How can you use it to help other people to move forward in their life? Something that you do naturally that you just take for granted. We recently had Darren on the show talking about 34 Strong, talking about Strengths Finder and understanding your strengths and working and playing to your strengths and your genius zone. You know what? You've got something that a gift and a talent and a value that you can bring. So think about, how can you do that? Lynne is giving you another example here of how she does it. And so we'd love to hear your stories of how you're planning on doing it. If there's a way that we can support you in that journey, if you need clarity and support in even developing a business plan around that, reach out to me. We can certainly talk about that. You can find us on social medias. Follow us on social medias and tell us what you're up to. We'd love to hear it. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.